don't know why I brought it with me. It wasn't evidence. It wasn't a document. It wasn't anything a person would think to carry into a building like that. All glass and marble and the kind of quiet that costs money. It was a crayon drawing, made by a 6-year-old girl on a Tuesday night, cross-legged on the kitchen floor while I stood at the stove pretending I wasn't crying into a pot of pasta. But I folded it and put it in my coat pocket before I left that morning. And the whole time I sat in that waiting room, 45 minutes in a chair that probably cost more than my car, I kept taking it out, looking at it, and folding it back up. I did it 3 times. The receptionist noticed. She didn't say anything. She just watched me with that careful, pitying look people give you when they don't know your story but can tell it's a hard one. I didn't care. I just kept holding it because I already knew, even then, that it was the most important thing in my pocket. I just didn't know yet what it was about to do. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start where it actually began. Let me tell you about Cole. Cole was not a dramatic person. That was one of the things I loved most about him. He didn't make speeches. He didn't say things like, "I love you to the moon and back." He said things like, "I made extra coffee. It's on the left side of the pot because I know you don't like the burnt stuff at the bottom." He fixed things without being asked. Not just in the apartment, though he did that too, every squeaky hinge, every flickering bulb, but in other ways, quiet ways. He noticed when I was tired before I said it. He took Molly on Saturday morning walks so I could sleep in. He always left the last piece of whatever we were eating for me. He never once mentioned that he did any of it. We met when I was 26, married at 28. Molly came along at 29, pink and furious, and the most beautiful thing either of us had ever seen. Cole cried in the delivery room. He pretended he wasn't, but I saw him. He was standing by the window holding her, his back to me, shoulders shaking. I never told him I saw. That felt like something that belonged to him. He was 33 when he died. A blood clot. Fast. The kind of thing that gives you no warning and no time to say what you should have said 1,000 times before. He was on his way home from work. He never made it. Molly was 4 years old. She didn't understand the word died. She kept asking when Daddy was coming back. For 2 weeks, she asked. Then one morning, she stopped asking. I think that was the hardest day. I kept a lot of things after he was gone. His mug, the blue one with the chipped handle that I'd tried to throw away twice and couldn't, a cardigan on the back of the kitchen chair, and the lily he planted for me the first Valentine's Day we were in the apartment, a stargazer lily in a terracotta pot on the windowsill. I have kept that lily alive for 5 years. Molly asked me once why I still water it. I told her it's because plants don't know when someone is gone. I didn't tell her the real reason, that watering it every morning is the only thing I do every day that still feels like talking to him. Molly is 6. She has her father's eyes, that particular shade of brown that looks almost gold in the afternoon, and my stubbornness, which I consider a fair trade. She has opinions about everything, which shoes feel too loud, which clouds look like animals, whether the number 8 is a happy number or a sad one. She says it's happy, by the way. She has given this serious thought. She draws every night before bed, always at the kitchen table, always with the same set of 12 crayons she keeps in a tin that used to hold butter cookies. The tin is dented now and the label is mostly gone, but she refuses to replace it. It was a gift from Cole, she told me, for Christmas when she was 3. She doesn't actually remember him giving it to her, but I told her that story, and she holds it like a fact. The drawings are always the same in structure. A house, a yard, flowers, always lilies because of the one on our windowsill, and stick figures. The number of figures changes depending on what she's thinking about. Sometimes it's the 2 of us. Sometimes she adds her friend Jenna from school or our neighbor, Mrs. Calloway, who gives her sugar cookies. But there is always one figure that never changes. In the top corner of every drawing, always the top corner, always slightly apart from the others, is a small figure with wings. and above that figure, a careful yellow circle, a halo. I noticed the third or fourth time. I asked her who it was. She didn't look up from her drawing. She just said, matter-of-factly, the way she says everything that matters most, "That's Daddy. He lives in the corner of every picture now." I stood very still for a moment. Then I said, "That's a good place for him." She nodded like I had confirmed something obvious and went back to coloring. She asks me questions that I don't know how to answer. Not impossible questions. She's not cruel about it, just honest ones. The questions children ask when they haven't learned yet to protect the adults around them. Mama, do stars get lonely? Can someone be in heaven and still watch cartoons? Does Daddy know about the lily? Does he know we still have it? I always answer. Sometimes I make something up. Sometimes I tell her the truth, which is that I don't know. She accepts both answers with equal serenity. She is without question the bravest person I have ever met, and she is 6 years old and missing 3 teeth. After Cole died, I did what I had to do. I went back to work. I'd been a hotel events coordinator before Molly came along. A good job, decent pay, the kind of work that exhausted me in a satisfying way. But with Molly at home and no one else to cover the school runs and the sick days and the 10,000 small emergencies of raising a child alone, those hours didn't fit anymore. So I took the night shift, janitorial work at an office building downtown. It paid enough. More importantly, it meant I was home when Molly woke up, home when she got back from school, home for dinner every night. Dinner was non-negotiable. Whatever else fell apart, and things fell apart regularly, dinner was the thing I held on to. I always cooked properly, nothing from a packet, even on the nights when I was so tired I had to grip the counter to stay upright. I cooked. Pasta, soup, eggs, and toast done 4 different ways, whatever I could manage. I put it on the table, and we sat across from each other, and we ate like people who had somewhere to be. Molly asked me once, "If we had more money, would you still eat dinner with me?" I said yes, of course yes. She thought about it. Then she said, "Good, because the dinner is the best part." I sat in the hallway outside her bedroom for 3 minutes after she fell asleep that night. She didn't know she had just told me why I was still standing. The building I worked was called Whitmore Capital Tower. 42 floors of glass and steel in the financial district. The kind of building that makes the ones next to it feel apologetic. I had been on the overnight cleaning crew there for 14 months. I knew every corridor on floors 1 through 12. I knew which boardroom had a coffee stain that wouldn't come up no matter what I used. I knew that the plants in the lobby were fake, all of them, every single one, because real plants need tending, and no one in that building had time for that. I also knew the name of the man who owned it, Maxwell Whitmore. I had never spoken to him. We had been in the same building dozens of times. He had never once looked at me. Maxwell Whitmore moved through that building the way very wealthy people move through the world, as though the space is rearranging itself around him, and it is simply expected that it would. He was always the last to arrive and the last to leave. I'd see him on my way in sometimes, at the elevator bank at 11 at night, still in the suit, phone to his ear, face closed and unreachable as a locked gate. He never greeted anyone below the executive floors. Not the security guards, not the reception staff after 6, not me. I told myself it didn't matter. It didn't, really. I wasn't there to be seen. I was there to do the job and go home. But there was one evening, a Thursday in November, about a month into my time there, that I have never quite let go of. I was mopping the lobby at 11:15. Late delivery had left a mess near the revolving door. I had the floor half done, yellow wet floor signs out, working my way across in steady lines the way they trained us. Maxwell stepped off the elevator, crossed the lobby, His footsteps didn't slow for the wet floor signs. He walked right to the edge of my work area. I moved the mop back so he could pass. He passed. Then he stopped. I looked up. He turned back. He did not look at me directly. He looked at the floor. He pointed to a spot 2 feet to my left. Maxwell said, "You missed a spot." Then he walked to the revolving door and was gone. I looked at the spot. There was nothing there. The floor was clean. I finished the job. I clocked out. I drove home. I got into bed without waking Molly. And in the morning, I made her oatmeal and walked her to school, and watered the lily, and did not think about Maxwell Whitmore again. That was a decision I was only able to make because I didn't know then what I know now. Some people you think you've already figured out, and then life shows you the inside of them, and everything you thought you understood turns out to have been the back of a picture frame. The voicemail came on a Thursday afternoon. I was making Molly's lunch, peanut butter on brown bread, cut diagonally because she will not eat it any other way. The phone buzzed on the counter, and I ignored it until the sandwich was done and Molly was settled at the table with her crayons. It was from the cruise supervisor. Whitmore Capital had consolidated its service contracts. Our company had lost the account. With immediate effect, the overnight crew was being dissolved. Back pay would be processed within 14 working days. That was it. 43 seconds. I put the phone face down on the counter. I got a piece of scrap paper from the drawer, the back of an old receipt, and I did the math. Rent, due in 18 days. School fees, due in 11. Food, the standing order for Molly's asthma prescription, the minimum payment on the credit card I'd been working down for 8 months. I had 6 weeks. Maybe 7 if I was very careful about the shopping. I folded the receipt and put it in my pocket. I turned around. Molly was standing in the kitchen doorway in her school shoes, holding a red crayon. "What's that, Mama?" "Just a list, baby." "Is it a sad list?" I looked at her for a second. Her hair was half done. I'd been part way through a plait when the phone went. "No, come here, let me finish your hair." She came and stood between my knees, and I finished the plait. My hands were very steady. I waited until she had her backpack on, and I watched her go down the path to the school bus. Then I went inside. I sat at the kitchen table, and I put my head in my hands. Not for long, maybe 2 minutes. Then I got up. I washed the 2 cups in the sink. I watered the lily. I sat back down and opened my laptop. Because the only thing worse than a problem is sitting with it. You have to put your hands on it. You have to start. I didn't find out what was happening inside Maxwell Whitmore's world until much later. By then, a lot had already changed. But I want to tell you now because if I don't, nothing that comes after will make the kind of sense it needs to make. Maxwell had a daughter. Her name was Lily. She was 7 years old when she died. A heart condition, something she had been born with, something that the doctors had monitored, something that was supposed to be manageable. And then, one morning, it wasn't. She died in the hospital on a Tuesday in March, 7 years before any of this happened. Her favorite flower was a lily. She named herself after them, according to Imani, Maxwell's executive assistant, who had worked for him for 11 years and knew him the way you only know someone after watching them carry something invisible for a long time. Lily drew Maxwell a picture every morning. Every single morning, on whatever paper was nearby, with whatever she could find. Sometimes crayon, sometimes marker, sometimes pencil with the tip broken. The last picture she drew him was the morning before she was admitted to the hospital for the final time. It was a house, a yard, flowers, 3 stick figures, and in the top corner, slightly apart, a small figure with a yellow circle above her head. She drew herself with a halo. Maxwell asked her why. She told him, "Because I want you to find me." That drawing was framed and hanging on the wall of Maxwell's office, facing the wall. He had turned it around the day he came back to work after the funeral. He had not been able to turn it back, but he could not throw it away. He could not move it. So it stayed there, facing the wall, its back to the room, for 7 years. Imani told me later that she had watched him walk to that frame hundreds of times, rest his hand on the back of it, stand there for a moment, and then turn off the light and leave. He never turned it around. Not until Molly. But I'm still not there yet. Life kept going the way it does. Bills don't pause for grief, and neither do school pickups. I applied for work, hotel coordinator positions, administrative roles, anything that fit around the school schedule. I had 3 interviews in the first 2 weeks. No callbacks. I wasn't panicking, not quite, but I was getting close to the edge of what I could hold with my face neutral. Molly knew something was wrong. She always knows. She has Cole's instincts for the unspoken thing in a room. She just hasn't learned yet to pretend she doesn't notice it. She didn't ask me directly. Instead, she drew. I came home from an interview on a Wednesday afternoon to find a folded piece of paper propped against the lily on the windowsill. On the front, in her careful crayon letters, Mama. Inside, a house, a yard, the lily. A stick figure mom with, I recognized this as me because she had given the figure curly hair, which I have and she finds endlessly interesting. A stick figure Molly with a large yellow smile. A sun with a smiley face in the corner, and written underneath in the spelling we had practiced together the week before, Molly's card. Don't worry, Mama. Daddy says you are the best. I stood in the kitchen for a moment. Then I sat down at the table and I said out loud, to the room, to the lily, to no one and everyone, "When did Daddy say that?" As if she had been waiting by the door, and knowing Molly, she probably had, she appeared from the hallway. "Molly, in my dream last night, he was eating toast." And I laughed. Not the polite kind, not the startled kind, the real kind, the kind that comes up from somewhere you forgot existed, that surprises you from the inside. Molly beamed. She climbed into my lap and put her arms around my neck. We sat there for a while. It was the first time I had laughed in 11 days. I know, because I had been counting. 3 weeks after I was let go, Imani, Maxwell's assistant, found something. A data error. A billing reconciliation that had been processed incorrectly. The cleaning company whose contract had been canceled, mine, our crew, had not, in fact, been the underperforming team flagged in the audit. A transposition error in the spreadsheet had attached the wrong account number to the termination order. The wrong crew had been let go. Imani brought it to Maxwell. His response, by her account, was efficient. Process the correction, issue the back pay, reinstate the contracts. Standard error protocol. Then she showed him the crew roster, names, details. One note she had added herself, because Imani is the kind of person who adds the note. Cole, single mother, 1 child, age 6, no secondary income, currently uncontactable by former employer. Maxwell looked at the roster. He was quiet for a long time. Then, set up a meeting. Imani? Sir? With her. Heather Cole. Set it up. Should I tell her why? He was already walking away. No. Got the call the next morning. An assistant from Whitmore Capital. A meeting requested. Thursday at 10. No further information. I almost said no. I stood in the kitchen holding the phone, looking at the lily, thinking about the piece of receipt paper in my coat pocket with the maths on it, thinking about 11 days, thinking about Molly's smile in my lap. I said yes, and then I did the only thing I could think to do. I went to Molly's room. I found her tin of crayons, and I sat down at the kitchen table next to her that night, and I drew something too. I had not drawn anything since I was a child. I was not good at it, but I sat there and I drew. When Molly saw what I'd made, she considered it seriously for a long time. Then she nodded. "I'll do a better one." She was right. She did. I didn't know what was waiting for me in that building on Thursday. I didn't know what Maxwell Whitmore was going to say. And I definitely didn't know what Molly had quietly folded into my coat pocket that morning while I was making breakfast. If you want to know what happened when I walked through those doors and what my daughter's drawing did to the most powerful man in that room, subscribe right now, because the next 5 minutes of this story are the ones I still can't tell without my hands shaking. Thursday came. I dressed carefully. Not because I was trying to look like someone I wasn't. I had learned a long time ago that trying to look wealthy in a room full of wealthy people is the fastest way to look like neither. I dressed like myself. Clean, neat, the coat I had for 4 years that still held its shape. I dropped Molly at school. She hugged me for longer than usual. Then she pressed something into my coat pocket. "Molly, for the meeting, in case anyone needs it." I looked down. She was already running toward the school gate, her backpack bouncing. I put my hand in my pocket. Folded paper, the slight waxy texture of crayon. I didn't look at it. I just left it there. The receptionist at Whitmore Capital recognized me, or rather recognized the name. She called someone. A woman appeared from a side corridor. Fitted blazer, quick eyes, the kind of composed efficiency that means she has handled harder mornings than this one. "Amani." "Miss Cole, I am Amani, Mr. Whitmore's assistant. Thank you for coming." She led me to the lifts. 42nd floor. I had spent 14 months cleaning floors 1 through 12 of this building. I had never been above the lobby in daylight. The office was exactly what I expected, and nothing like what I expected. Everything precise, everything expensive, everything arranged to signal control. But there was something else, a tension in the room that I couldn't immediately name, the kind you feel when something is being deliberately not looked at. I looked around, and then I saw it. On the wall to the right of his desk, a framed picture, about A4 size, facing the wall. Just the back of it, the white cardboard backing, the wire hanger, nothing else. I stared at it for a moment, then I heard the door behind me. Maxwell Whitmore walked in. In person, he was exactly as I remembered. Tall, composed, the kind of presence that fills a room without apparent effort. He sat at his desk. He gestured to the chair across from it. I sat. "Miss Cole, I'll be direct. There was an administrative error. Your crew's termination was a mistake. Back pay will be processed this week, and your contract will be reinstated as of Monday." He said it the way you'd confirm a calendar appointment. No apology, no affect, just the information. I looked at him for a moment. "That's it?" "That's it." Something in me, The part that had sat at a kitchen table doing maths on the back of a receipt. The part that had kept its voice level in front of a 6-year-old who was asking about sad lists. That part of me had been expecting this moment to feel something. Relief, maybe, or resolution. Instead, it felt like a form being filed. 3 weeks. He looked up. 3 weeks I've been trying to find work. My daughter's school fees were due. My rent was due. I had maths on a piece of paper that I was doing over and over to try and make it come out differently. And you're telling me it was a spreadsheet error. He held my gaze. His expression didn't change exactly, but something shifted in it. The faintest adjustments, like a door that's been locked for a long time, moving a millimeter on its hinge. Yes. Okay. I stood up. I was going to leave. I had what I came for. Then my hand went to my coat pocket, the folded paper. I don't know why I did what I did next. I can't explain it to this day. Maybe it was Molly's voice in my head. For the meeting, in case anyone needs it. Maybe it was something about the frame picture facing the wall. I took the folded drawing out of my pocket. I put it on his desk. My daughter made that. She puts one in my pocket sometimes when she thinks I might need it. I think maybe you need it more than I do today. I picked up my bag. I walked to the door. Miss Cole. I turned. He was looking at the folded drawing. He had not touched it. Thank you for coming. He said it quietly, not the way he'd said everything else. I nodded. I left. I was in the elevator before I realized my hands were shaking. I found out what happened next from Imani. She called me 2 days later, on a Saturday morning, ostensibly to confirm the reinstatement paperwork. And then she said, "Can I tell you something? Off the record." I said yes. After I left Maxwell's office, she told me, he sat at his desk for a long time. He didn't take the next meeting. He didn't answer the calls that came through. He just sat. Imani watched through the glass partition. She had worked with this man for 11 years, and she'd never seen him sit still without purpose. After about 20 minutes, he unfolded the drawing. She couldn't see it clearly from where she was, but she saw his face. She told me, "Heather, I don't know how to describe it. He looked broken open, like something cracked right across the middle of him." He studied that drawing for a long time. Then he stood up. He walked to the frame on the wall, the one facing backwards, the one that had been there for 7 years. He put his hand on it. Imani said she held her breath. He stood there for a full minute. Then he put the drawing, Molly's drawing, in the inside pocket of his jacket, carefully, with both hands, and he left the office without a word. He came to my apartment that evening. I know what you're thinking, and I thought it too, that this was the part of the story where I opened the door and everything resolved into something clean. That is not what happened. It was more complicated than that, and more true. I saw him through the peephole. I stood very still for a moment. A year's worth of tired mornings and quiet maths, and Molly asking if the list was sad. All of that was standing very close to the surface. I pressed the intercom and said, "I know why you're here." There was a long pause from the corridor. Then his voice, "May I come in?" "I don't think that's a good idea," I replied. Silence followed. I waited for him to leave, but he didn't. And then, from the bedroom, I heard small feet on the wooden floor, a door opening, a voice, slightly croaky with almost sleep. "Mama, is someone at the door?" I turned. Molly was standing in the hallway in her pajamas, holding her tin of crayons against her chest, blinking at me. Before I could answer, she padded past me to the door. She looked through the glass panel, then turned back to me. "Mama," she said, "that man looks really sad. Can he come in?" I looked at my daughter. I looked at the door. Then I opened it. Maxwell Whitmore stood in my doorway. In his office, he had seemed immovable, complete. Here, in the corridor of a flat he had never entered, in front of a 6-year-old girl in hedgehog pajamas, he looked like a person. Molly looked up at him with that specific intensity she has, the kind that makes grown adults feel gently interrogated. "You look sad," she told him. Maxwell opened his mouth, then closed it. "It's okay," Molly said. "Sad people can come in. That's the rule." She stepped back from the door, an invitation. I looked at Maxwell, he looked at me. I stepped aside, and he came in. My apartment, seen through other people's eyes, is small. The kitchen and sitting room are one space. The ceiling in the hallway is low. Everything is clean and worn and lived in the way that things are when money is careful and love is not. Maxwell stood just inside the doorway. He looked around. I watched him take it in. The drawings on the fridge held up with mismatched magnets, Cole's mug on the dish rack, the cardigan on the back of the chair, and then the lily on the windowsill. He went still. Not a sudden stillness, a slow one, like something inside him had caught. I saw it happen, but I didn't know what it meant yet. I made tea. Chamomile, the only thing I had. Molly sat at the kitchen table with her crayons, which meant she was either drawing or listening or both. Maxwell sat across from me. We talked about the paperwork, the practical things. He was formal and careful, and I was the same. And then Molly looked up from the table. She had been drawing the whole time. She got down from her chair, walked around the table, and stopped in front of him. She held out the drawing and said, "I made this for you." Maxwell looked at the drawing. He looked at Molly. Something moved across his face, not quite surprise, something quieter than that. He took it, carefully, both hands. "What is this a picture of?" "It's a family. That's the mama, that's me. I gave myself big hair like mama's. That's the house. And those are the flowers in the yard." "What kind of flowers?" "Lilies. Mama grows one for Daddy. It's on the window. I thought maybe you might have a lily too." Maxwell's eyes moved from the drawing to the windowsill, to the stargazer lily in its terracotta pot, back to the drawing. His eyes moved to the corner of the page. He went quiet. In the top corner, slightly apart, slightly smaller, a stick figure with wings, and above it, careful and deliberate, a yellow circle. "Who is this one?" He said it very quietly. "Molly. That's Daddy. He's in the corner of every picture. He always has wings because he's in the sky now, but he can still see us. Mama says so." Maxwell did not move. I watched his face. I had been watching it for the last 10 minutes without fully understanding why, and now I saw something there that I hadn't been able to name before. Recognition. Not of us, not of me or Molly or our story, of something in the drawing, something in that small figure with its yellow halo in the top corner of the page, something that was also true for him. His hand tightened on the drawing. He removed his glasses. He pressed his thumb and 2 fingers against the bridge of his nose. The kitchen was very quiet. The clock on the wall, the hum of the fridge. Outside, a car passing. His shoulders, which I had never once seen move from their squared, controlled position, dropped, very slightly, by a fraction, and a tear fell onto the drawing. He didn't wipe it. He didn't move. Molly watched him. She was not alarmed. I want you to understand that. She was not frightened or confused. She had seen me cry. She had seen Mrs. Calloway from upstairs cry at the kitchen table over cold tea. She understood that adults sometimes needed to. She reached out and put her small hand over his. "Did someone in your family go to the sky too?" Maxwell's mouth opened. No words came. Molly nodded, slowly, seriously, the way she nods when something confirms a theory she already had. "Molly, it's okay. They can see the same stars as Daddy. I asked Mama about that. They're all in the same sky." She patted his hand once. Then she climbed back onto her chair and picked up a crayon and went back to drawing. I had not moved. I had been sitting across this table from a man I'd resented for a year, A man who had walked past me in a lobby at 11 at night without a glance. A man whose carelessness had put me 6 weeks from a cliff edge. And now, I was watching him hold my daughter's drawing with both hands and try to stay composed in a kitchen that smelled of chamomile tea and crayon wax. He straightened, slowly. He took a breath. He folded the drawing, carefully, precisely, the way you fold something you intend to keep. He put it in the inside pocket of his jacket, over his chest. He looked at me. I looked at him. Neither of us said anything for a moment. We didn't need to. Some things that get spoken disappear the moment they're said. Some things you just let exist in a room. The reinstatement went through the following Monday. Back pay arrived 2 days after. I paid the rent. I paid the school fees. I put a small amount aside and I bought Molly a new set of crayons. A proper set. 64 colors, in a case that opens like a book. She looked at it for a long time. Then she put it carefully beside her butter cookie tin. Both? Both. She used the new ones to draw and kept the old ones for important drawings. I did not ask her to explain the difference. Some things you leave alone. Maxwell and I did not become friends. Not quickly, not easily. Things that begin the way ours did, in a waiting room, across a ledger of mistakes, in a kitchen neither of us expected to share, they don't resolve into something simple. But Imani told me, some weeks later, something I haven't stopped thinking about. She walked into the office on the Monday after he had visited our apartment. She walked past Maxwell's desk. She looked at the wall. The framed drawing that had been facing the wall for 7 years had been turned around. She didn't say anything to him about it. She just went to her desk and started her day. She told me she cried in the bathroom at lunchtime, just briefly, out of something that felt like relief on his behalf, the kind you feel for someone who finally put down something heavy they've been carrying so long they forgot it wasn't part of them. I thought about Lily's last drawing, the house, the yard, the lilies, the small figure in the corner of the page with the yellow halo. I thought about Molly's drawing, the same house, the same yard, the same lilies, the same figure in the top corner of the page. I thought about all the ways the people we lose stay present in the world, and the drawings children make without knowing why, and the plants we water every morning because we don't know how to stop, and the mugs we can't move, and the cardigans that stay on the back of chairs, in the corner of every picture, whether we look there or not. My daughter drew a picture that made the billionaire cry. She didn't do it to change him. She didn't do it because she understood what he needed. She did it because she is 6 years old, and she draws pictures for people who look sad, and that is simply who she is. But here is what I know now that I didn't know when I was sitting in that waiting room, folding and unfolding a piece of paper I didn't understand why I'd brought. The people we put wings on don't disappear. They move to the corner of every picture, and they stay there, patient and present and golden, whether we let ourselves look or not. He stayed, and that changed everything. If this story stayed with you, if it reminded you of someone you've loved and put wings on, share it with them or share it for them. And if you want more stories like this one, subscribe now, because I have more to tell you.